All right, so everybody on here keeps asking about your elephant train thing, and they all want further elaboration. So whenever
So,
you're ready.
how much did you put in there? So, where do I start and how to...
I just said you hit an elephant with a train.
Oh, okay. It happened fairly early in the morning. Got called to go to work, and when I got down to the train yard, got my orders, and we had a very small train, short. It was the LAX, and I was very pleased because we could always run those fast and furious. So, when I got to the yard office, my brakeman had been partying the night before, and he was actually partying when he got the call, and he wasn't feeling too good. He was a little on the drunk side, and he says, "Do you mind if I crash and burn? Because I'm exhausted." He says, "I'll sneak on the train and you can do the rest." So we went to go out and get on the train, and nobody said anything, but the bus driver that took us to the head end of the train to put us on, he realized that my brakeman was drunk. I knew he was drunk, but we got on the train and took off. I figured because we had a fast little train, I didn't need him for anything, so let him sleep it off. We get on the train, and we weren't aware of it at the time, but the Barnum and Bailey, or not Barnum and Bailey, yeah, I guess it is. The circus had left about an hour and a half ahead of us, and we didn't even know he was out there. But we found this out later. We get on the train and take off, and my brakeman's sitting over there on the left-hand side of the cab, passed out. We're heading toward Ogden, and on the big, long, swooping curve right there by Lagoon, it kind of swings sharp left and then straightens out, goes back right, and away you go again. As we approach that curve right there at Lagoon, I looked up and I saw what I thought was an elephant. But when you see something like that, you don't realize what you're seeing, because what you're seeing doesn't belong there. So and we're doing a little over 70 miles an hour, and before I had time to register in my brain what I was looking at, we were on top of this little guy, and we hit him, and I jumped up and ran to the other side, and I told the brakeman, I said, "My God, I just hit an elephant." And he kind of woke up, slurred a few words, "An elephant?" He says, "No, you didn't." And he went back to sleep. Well, I did. And I had knocked it onto the westbound track. And I could see it laying there. Didn't know it was dead or alive or whatever, but it knocked it over onto the westbound track. And I immediately grabbed the radio, called the dispatcher, and I says, "If you've got any westbounds coming, there's an elephant laying on the tracks. I just hit it. And if they hit it again, it might derail a train." So the first thing out of his mouth was it a pink elephant? And I says, "No, it's not a pink elephant, it's an elephant. I just hit him on the tracks up here at this curve." And I gave him the milepost so they'd know where to look. I says, you better get somebody up there to check it out and make sure that it's clear of the tracks, but I knew it wasn't. So we proceeded I just kept going. And when we left Ogden, the dispatcher called back and wanted to know exactly where it was. Now this is a little bit of time had gone by, but I told him it was on the big curve right there by Lagoon. And so he says, well, I've got somebody going out there to check on it. Well, by the time we got to Green River, it was, the whole railroad knew about it, because they had called me back and says, in fact, it was an elephant, and it wasn't pink, and it was killed. And so a crew went up there in a pickup truck, 2 guys in a pickup truck to check it out, to make sure I wasn't pulling anybody's leg. Realized what they had to go back and get a big flatbed and a crane to pick it up and get it off the tracks. So then the stories started to kind of come out. Everybody was, the dispatcher was aware of it and whatnot. And the circus train had left ahead of us by about an hour and a half. The mother was chained down with a chain around her front paw, her front leg, and she could move around a little bit, but she couldn't go anyplace. And the elephant that we hit was the baby of that mother that was chained, had a chain on it. And the door was open because it was hot, and they just had a strap across the door. It was a Barnum and Bailey car, just an old car that had been modified for, it was an old cattle car, and it was hauling this elephant in there. So by the time I got to Green River, like I said, the whole railroad knew that Coning had just hit an elephant on the tracks and killed it, and this elephant was probably, if I had to guess, it stood maybe 5 feet tall, and it was just a young baby, and it was in the car, wasn't chained. I guess the circus people figured it'd be okay because Mama was there in there with it, and she would take care of it. But it must have gotten by the open door, and as we went around the corner, it maybe rocked a little bit, and it lost its footing and fell out. I was standing on the tracks, and it had it, when I hit it, it was facing us, and it had its trunk. He was lifting his trunk up and bellowing like he was calling for his mother, and of course she was long gone on the train. So when I hit it, I let everybody know about it, and by the time I got home, everybody knew about it, and that's about all I can tell you about it. It was just a baby elephant that had fallen out of a boxcar or a cattle car, standing in the middle of the tracks, and I was the unfortunate one that came along at that time and struck it and killed it.
All right then.